Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simon Isles. I'm officially, as of 48 hours now, the network manager for children and young people with diabetes. So it's been absolutely lovely to meet you all. It's felt a little bit like I've gone around a wedding party and just said hello for about 10, 15 seconds each. But I do hope over the course of time we'll have opportunity to meet over longer and more meaningful sort of conversations. So I don't know about yourself. I found out a great deal about the SEREN Connect program in this very short space of time, and equally how important it is. It was one of those sort of aspects of care in education, which I've always found to be particularly fascinating and important, not just in adults, but specifically in young people. And I've had opportunity to discuss a few of these sort of ideas with people during the course of the morning session, which I'm sure everyone has equally enjoyed. So as the afternoon session continues, we'll be looking at a less formal sort of presentation sort of way of looking, except from a live link from Leeds, apparently. So hopefully they can get up the M4 or whatever they need to do to get that communication working forward. And it's more on a workshop or discussion-based style. I hope that everyone has the opportunity to chip in. It'd be brilliant to get that feedback, because that's how we all learn and how we move things forward. If anyone's sharing posts, please remember the sort of hashtag SEREN Connect, capital letters for SEREN and the capital C for Connect, and get it out there, because again, if we can get that information out, the better. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Leanne Jenkins, who Leanne currently works for Diabetes UK Cymru as the Clinical Advisor and Health Engagement Manager. Leanne has been qualified nurse for 32 years, before moving back to Wales in 2018. Leanne had been working in diabetes for the last 20 years as a diabetes specialist nurse and in diabetes service lead in East London. Leanne is particularly interested in the delivery of transitional care, monogenic diabetes, and severe insulin resistance. And also a genetic diabetes nurse here in Wales. Leanne is going to be facilitating this afternoon's sessions. It's more than one. So without further ado, I'd like Leanne to come up and take forward. Thank you very much. Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you. I think I actually wrote that myself. Oh. Right, so this is the theme, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But as I was saying, I think I did write that little intro myself, but it's very difficult to hardly recognise myself in that, I have to say. But what I will say, that I did work in transition for quite a number of years when I was working in diabetes full time, and a lot of what you said today resonated with my experience as well. But I would say the one thing that perhaps we did do in our service, which was slightly different, is that we also involved the young adults in sort of when they wanted to move across into services. But yes, a lot of what you said does resonate really well with me. And as I remember it, it was a time of sort of in clinical care that I really, really enjoyed. So so the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this is, I guess, your opportunity now to actually tell us what's really good about SEREN Connect, what's maybe not so good, the bad, and what don't you like so much. But also the other thing as well is an opportunity to tell us, you know, how you use it, how you use these resources, and, you know, what else, what would improve the resources, what would improve your experience of using them, and ultimately what would make it better for younger people moving into adult services. So I've got some slides, but actually the slides I've got are on your tables, and they're big sheets of paper, and I'm hoping that you'll write all your thoughts on these big sheets of paper. I think this is sort of like the audience participation bit. There's also a chance for you to chat about, you know, if you had no constraints, if money was no object, if there, you know, if there were no problems with recruitment and retention, what would your service look like? So I'm just going to run through these questions, but as I say, they are actually on your tables as well. So what we'll do afterwards when we've done this piece of work is that we're actually going to talk about everything that you've said, and we're going to have a session later on in the afternoon. But so then it's up to everybody to chip in and tell us what they think as well. So the good, what are the plus points of SEREN Connect? The bad, these are going quicker than I thought too. And then if you're not choosing SEREN Connect at the moment, how do you introduce these topics with young people that are moving to adult services? If you want to collaborate or you want to work more closely with SEREN Connect, use your QR code, but all this is actually on your table. Now, I'm mindful we've only probably got about 40 minutes to do this, and there's quite a lot of questions, so I'm going to let you carry on, but we will be walking around. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay.
I'm just going to introduce back Leanne Jenkins and Sarah Crowley, who are going to go through a fistful of comments, apparently. So I'm very fascinated to know what that's about.
You can ask Leanne. Well, so obviously the theme was Good, Bad and the Ugly, which was the first film in the trilogy. And then the second film was A Fistful of Dollars, A Fistful of Comments. So now it's over to you for your comments. So we're in the coffee shop discussing the theme.
Went over my head of the trilogy, so anyone knows that's the hidden theme in the agenda. And there's a secret question.
Oh yes, so who was the composer of the music of this trilogy of films?
Have a think about it. Tell us at the end.
Tell us at the end. I'm so old, I know. No, it wasn't.
Try again.
It wasn't. Good shout. Good shout. Not bad. Not kind of that era though. So I guess what we wanted to do now really is this is the opportunity where you can feed back to us and you can come back to us with some comments about that last session and what you've actually put on your sheet. So I suppose in the first instance we could start with the good. So what's good? What do you think works about SEREN? What are the good points? We've got some mics as well. So if anybody wants to...
I don't think we're going to go round table by table. We're going to ask someone, if you've had a good day and you're happy to be here and you like your freebies and your lunch, please put your hand up. This is your bit to work now. Anybody got anything on their comments they want to share? It's been a fantastic day from my point of view. I'm going to start off. It's lovely to see you all. It's lovely to hear you talking about a programme that was born out of a lot of difficulties of living with type 1, I think, and finding that those experiences were actually quite common to lots of people. So to hear all the comments today has been lovely, but I want us to do better together. We're a little nation that we can put our arms around and do it nationally, which is fantastic. So yeah, but what did you say? This session
I've been given the mic again.
Oh, hopefully then Simon.
Yeah, here we go. I'm not going to sing, I promise. A few notes to say about it was relatable. That's one thing that we'd all written down, is that the SEREN Connect program is relatable to people who actually need it. So I think that's something that should be firmly endorsed right across Wales, to be brutally honest, and the rest of the UK.
Getting there slowly. We've Thank you for the comments. Nice.
I think we found it really easy to do the good. So I thought I'd get in with some of the responses for that. We just thought the booklets are excellent. The language is inclusive. There's no jargon. It encourages engagement. The subjects that are interesting to the young people, and it's fun and interactive and easy to facilitate.
Oh, thank you very much. Anybody got anything different? We're not going to go around just for the sake of having all your comments if they're similar, but if you've got anything else you want to add. Oh, we got over here. Oh, sorry, go on.
We also said we were thinking about it as an opportunity to build peer relationships, because you've got young people at a similar age who've got type 1 who live close to each other, that we can maybe an opportunity for that.
Just think of a bit. Steps are going up.
We like the fact that it teaches about those life skills, about, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll. And it's the peer support, because I'm sure we've all seen patients where they think they're the only person with type 1 and they're not. So it's about, you know, they're able to meet everybody.
Yeah, and I think for me, so I'm going to just chip in with some of the things as you're saying it in terms of the development of it. For me, I didn't realize how isolated I was. Like I said, I've made no, I'm quite open about my own experiences with type 1, and it's probably been the making of me in some places as much as it's been the breaking. But I didn't realize how isolated I was until I went on the Daphne course and saw other people. And we didn't even have to speak, we just understand. And what I want from that is to bring that earlier in people's journey so they get SEREN Connect, which is then a stepping stone to Daphne. If we're finding it difficult to recruit into Daphne courses, but they have a really good experience earlier on, you know, if in those discussions in your sessions you realize, you say, do you know what, it sounded like you were talking about difficulties going out in a restaurant and eating. Do you think you'd want to go on a carbohydrate course, because we've got something else? And then it becomes stepping stones onto other things that you've got. And that was my sort of want from that as well, really. But yeah, the isolation, you don't even realize how isolating it can be until you go on courses you don't realize you need as well. So I think that's something lots of people tend to say.
We thought it was accurate information and really relevant, and information that they probably need to look for elsewhere if it wasn't given by us in this nice structured way. And then they're at risk of sort of that misinformation from Google or wherever they're looking.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like sometimes when I was setting this out, I was thinking, well, is this a nurse or a dietitian? And actually it felt it is everybody's responsibility to be able to hold this information so they can get it from places. So yeah, again, that's a really good comment. Thank you. Anyone else? Or should we move on to the bad?
I think move on to the bad.
Which is equally as important as the good. This is what this session is here for, because it isn't going to be perfect. There's going to be things that will change. And what's been so nice today is to hear how much you've all said you're growing all the time, you're adapting all the time, you're changing. And that's exactly, you know, what we should be doing as well. So yeah, I'm not worried about the bad. Please tell me honestly what you come up with. What's clunky? What's difficult? Oh, which way are you going to go, Ness?
I'm going to be very controversial.
Please do.
We were talking about the bilingual books. They're very thick. And I know this is always a difficult one with the language, isn't it? Is can we do them separate rather than both in one? Be interesting to know for the people that speak Welsh, do they find it difficult? They look very thick. I think that's what we were commenting on.
Well, I've got English only versions for England, and I think they feel a bit thin. They do feel a bit thin. I'm like, oh, but can I just, I am a fluent Welsh speaker. I've had all of this translated by a company. And actually, when I read it back myself, having learnt in class through Welsh, again, I read it in Welsh. I was like, oh, I know what I'm talking about because I understand the both languages. So as a fluent speaker, it's really useful to have it, I think. And you might take it in differently when you read the language you're used to learning in, even if that's not the language you're speaking with your healthcare professionals with as well. So, but maybe there's some work around this of what we can do. We've put it side by side because that's the standards we have to do as well, really. But I take it on board as well. But we do have English versions only as well, but we're just getting them to NHS England at the moment.
The other one, only just one. We were just saying we know it's really difficult when you print things about version control, isn't it, to make sure that everybody's got the most up-to-date version.
Yeah, and we have got updated ones now as well. One of the things I did want to touch on actually, because it's come up quite a few times, is some people are saying about slides and some people saying we didn't know there were slides. And that's actually one of the things that came obviously from COVID. I've got draft PowerPoint versions, which I'm happy for you to trial as they are for all 4 sessions. But from the money, I may have touched on this earlier, that we've made from selling it elsewhere, we've been able to make them more professional. But I need people, like I said, to be able to think. I have got a list of names now, so I will get in touch with you after today. If anyone wants the slides to use them in the draft format, we've got them available. You just need to contact me and I'll send them out. What we'll do down the line when they are more available and that professional signed off capacity, will make them even easier for you to get hold of. So that's kind of a piece of work that's in development as well. So sorry if knowing about the slides was new today, but again, that's part of today, isn't it? And what you want to get out of it. But yeah, we do have slides ready to go now, even though they're in draft format. Any other comments, Joe?
So one of the things that prompted the biggest discussion on our table was about how lots of us came into nursing and dietetics and our other respective professions, not necessarily to be teachers.
Mhm.
So it does rely quite heavily on the health professionals having either a natural aptitude for teaching or some self-taught teaching skills, and not everybody's going to have that.
That's a very good point. Is there something we can do to help you with that? Because I think that's a very valid point. You're not teachers and you're expected to deliver education. I am a teacher, so I found it quite easy to put together. It's four lessons. But if that's something we're struggling with, that is exactly what you can put on your paper. What can we do to help you with that and develop? We're not going to get it next week, but we can put that in the next, when I review my job plan, what can I do to help you with that and put things together?
And I think, because I wasn't very clear, and as I gave the mic over, I thought, hang on, we do teaching in our role all the time. But I think it's that group teaching, isn't it? It's almost like teaching a class. I think we've all come into this job. We all know there's a massive amount of education to do with it. And I think we can all do that one-to-one, but it's putting you in that group situation where you almost are like the teacher at the front of a class, that it can feel like sometimes.
So if we put on some form of training to address the group things, it's not just a Joe either. Can you write down on the pieces of paper how you would like to have that? If it would be, I can't say I could do all of these things, but it would be good to get a consensus of what you'd want that to look like, whether we did another day like today type of training, but more addressing, actually, how do you run it? It could be a virtual thing we do monthly and you can check in. I don't know, but if you have a bit of an idea, I've just given you a lot of work that I'm going to have to do now, and I put them on paper. But that's what I want from today, is what's going to help you to do your job. And if you're not getting enough from us, put it down and we can regroup.
Hi, 2 points. 1 point, coming back to the booklets, I agree. When I first saw them, I thought, oh, they're really thick. But as soon as you open one, then you realise, that it's two halves, and then it makes the others a lot more kind of approachable. And I think what would happen is somebody would just order one version on the order code, and then you'd just end up with either English or Welsh, and it would just get messy in the clinic.
Yeah, that's my side to try and get NHS England over there and NHS Wales over here. It does get really clunky as well. But actually, that was it's a really valid point about the length of the booklets, because again, when I was developing it and the people that helped me initially, the length of the booklets came up, and I actually wanted to develop something, because when I looked at the leaflets I was given as a child just had bullet points. And if you think you can put managing diabetes just into bullet points, there's no point in giving the leaflet out in the first place. It really irked me as somebody living with it that they couldn't give me more. So we'll keep that conversation open about the booklets. If you're getting that from young people as well, it's too young. Perhaps we need too long. Perhaps we need, we could look at PDFs, different versions. I'd love an easy read version of them, and I'm already in touch with Easy, the company that could do that with us for Wales, because again, accessibility is there. That's not going to be relevant for everyone.
Divided, and actually the notes section, it does marry together, and it actually is I think quite a good length when you realise that it's two halves. Our points about the bad was more about, obviously it's difficult to engage young people. It's about getting the admin for that, but also difficulties with young people getting there, because in in Swansea, apparently, there's one parent was like, well, I work in the evening, so you're not going, I can't take you to that. And then
we had that a couple of times where we'd had parents weren't able or wouldn't take their kids, and that's just heartbreaking, isn't it? But that again is a valid point. I'm going to take all these away and think what we can come back. I don't have anything to come back with at the minute, but thank you for that. Any other points that just food for thought? No. Moving on to ugly now. Is there anything that really doesn't work and you would get rid of today if you could? Please tell me, because what did you have on those? Anything at all? Oh, it's Joe again.
Just the spokesperson.
I'm teasing.
We couldn't think of anything we'd get rid of. But the one thing we did say is, and I know it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, we haven't got anything for our type 2s and our other forms of diabetes. And I have tried to invite young people with other types of diabetes to, and I find myself apologizing to them the whole time, going, oh, I'm sorry that didn't quite apply to you, but maybe think of it like this. And I'm sorry, I just felt really apologetic.
Do you think the program could be adapted to a type 2 program? Not just to Joe, everybody in the room, you know, I'm happy to have that discussion because, yeah.
So whilst things like obviously insulin on the whole, hypos, etc., and are not relevant, you know, the chronic after effects of, you know, long-term diabetes are similar. So some of the things are completely transferable to young people with type 2. The difficulty we all have is that there's only 1 or 2. I mean, we've got about 12, I think, but you know, we're huge, but most units don't. And therefore running a separate SEREN Connect for type 2 wouldn't be feasible, I don't think. Other people can tell me if they think differently. So I think it would be a case of perhaps just, I don't know, having a different angle on one of the sessions that would be more pertinent to the things that are that span both. That you could maybe invite the type 2 or other young people with other types of diabetes too, but perhaps the whole program isn't relevant. I don't know. And as you know, there's a type 2 working group within the whole England and Wales network, but also within the Wales network. And we're developing resources for the young people with type 2 anyway. So I think maybe it will come, Joe, but I don't think it's quite there.
When we had our young adult events,
Sorry, go on.
we before SEREN Connect, we used to run group events, which were very similar, sort of lifestyle topic based. We used to invite the type 2s along to that and forewarn them that there would be some stuff in it that wouldn't be relevant, but you know, like the alcohol, staying safe, preventing unwanted pregnancies, things like that were all very relevant.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because just to put the cat among the pigeons there, the numbers aren't there to have a group of type 2, but sometimes for me, I'd be really guarded, I think, to have a group of young people talking, especially if they were to bring up the misconceptions between type 2. You heard Duke say it earlier. He doesn't like people mistaking his type 2 for type 1. And if you had a young person in the room with type 2 and the group with type 1 needs the space to be able to vent that. But by doing that, you're not bringing in people with type 2 and then they become isolated. So it's a really difficult one whilst the numbers are low. I wonder if there's any way, again, we can maybe look with the Children Young People's Network. And as I say that, I would like to have more of a network that actually does span up to 25, so it doesn't just cut off. But, you know, is there any way we could look at doing something, adapting what we've got, and then if you come together, so the numbers would be that across Wales, would there be enough for a group? And you looked at how we could do that. I don't know. It's probably a lot more work, isn't it? But I absolutely get the point, because that number is growing, and we know that is needed as well. So again, these are all conversations. Again, initially when we put it together, could I just do a diabetes program? But it felt it did need the space to be a type 1, and I do think you need the space to be a type 2 program. I also think this type of program is actually transferable to other conditions, not just for diabetes as well. If you're talking about having confidence to wear something on your hip, or you know, an ileostomy bag, or having to tell someone you've got a condition, these are just common things along, you know, young people who will live with long-term conditions have to deal with that other people just don't. So I think there's definitely room to grow. Probably not talking to the right group of people here, but there's learning in that, I think, for other conditions to look to diabetes as well.
I was going to say, why are we cutting it off at 25? Because I've been working in clinics, I'm sure everybody else has, where you've seen adults coming in who are are broken down because when they were a child diagnosed with type 1, the parents did most of it. And then they've come out and said, actually, I don't know what I'm doing. And so why are we stopping at 25 when really this could be adapted for those with type 1 who are older?
I'd like to open that up to the adult colleagues in the room, really. Do you think there would be any way of having this type of program available to adults with type 1? I wondered if we could have a bit of a discussion around that, really. Perhaps you haven't delivered it to really know, but the reason I cut it off at 25 is that's because where my job role sort of focuses on. I'm not stupid. I wrote it with the fact that I'm 35 now and I benefit from something like this as well. That isolation is really difficult to deal with. And whilst my clinic has exactly a place to help me, it's not the only place to help me. And actually getting together with other young people is probably what saved me the most. That was on the Daphne course first and then when I went after that. So how do you feel about an adult course, really? You know, what's some of the feelings in the room there, or the resources? Sorry, Ness, I'm giving you the run around here.
We were kind of just discussing that, really. We have got Daphne,
Yeah.
which caters for the type 1 population of all ages, really. And it covers a lot of these that's mentioned in the SEREN Connect booklets. Whether there is a place to run SEREN Connect for the older type 1s, that's open to discussion, really. But I think Daphne does address a lot of these issues.
Yeah, and you know, again, I'd be happy after today if you felt you wanted to trial it as they are with an older group. Come and have that conversation with me. You know, I'm open to working with anyone that wants to use the resources and see what we can do with that. So
I've given some of the leaflets out to people that are slightly older than our cohort. The other thing I'd like to say about the younger type 2s is that all the literature we've got at the moment for type 2s is sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. And all of the images in there are of middle-aged or older people. There's nothing in those booklets at all that would look like a 14-year-old or a 21-year-old. They're all old people, and that's what we're having to give to type 2s.
And again, we're living in an age where representation does matter. It really does. And actually, when, you know, it's quite a young sort of theme with SEREN Connect. But again, I did a bit of scoping out and I gave it to people in their 30s. Said, you know, what do you feel about this? I said, this information is great. I wish I'd had it when I was younger. We gave different artwork where there was part photographs in there. I don't like stock photography. I think I look at it and go, that, you know, stomach with a lovely flat stomach with an insulin pump on it does never look like mine. So I'm not for stock photography. That's a personal thing of mine. But the young people chose just the cartoons, and the feedback I'm getting from people who are not involved in the development of it is, this looks like me. And it does. Representation is important. The skin colors of people throughout SEREN Connect changes. You know, we've never been living in a better age to have that. So again, that's a valid point, and I think that's something we need to take forward with all of the things we develop. Is, you know, but a lot of that came from having that feedback in the first place. That was something that was really integral, important to me.
Yeah, because I'm a trainee in adult services, so I think Daphne does cover a lot, but actually, and I haven't been part of SEREN Connect, those kind of 4 sessions.
Sure.
But if they're less about the nitty gritty, you could have it almost as like a stepping stone, especially for those people who get diagnosed after the age of 16, just a general kind of thing of like, you can meet some other people, here are some other kind of resources. And because I think a lot of these, they don't look super childish either. I think you could give that to a much older person and they wouldn't think, oh, this is for a teenager. So that might be a nice thing, especially some people are a bit nervous about Daphne and the commitment, but if they like, it's like, it will make it less scary to kind of meet other people, and a stepping stone and more discussion about what's happening with them.
That's what I wanted, really, because there is Daphne, and like I said at the very beginning of my slides, there is the SEREN diagnosis. I didn't want to step on those toes because I do feel those are very medical. This is not supposed to be medical, because I heard somewhere last week, someone said diabetes is a social condition as much as it is, you know, a medical condition. And that stuck with me because actually it is. So my personal feeling, I tried not to make it as duplication, but until you've probably tried it, and I get that feedback from medical staff and colleagues, then I don't really know. But I've purposely not tried to touch on Daphne's toes enough. So then you could say, like I said earlier, a stepping stone exactly is what I wanted. And if they get a good experience of education with this, I'm hoping it'll, you know, have a bit more interest with Daphne as well.
Thank you. I just thought on the inclusivity kind of topic, it's really lovely to see so many kind of pictorial resources. What we were kind of discussing is that it does still rely a lot on literacy status. So we do have some patients, even within the adult colleagues, kind of boundaries that really do not, they can't read and write, or we have some children with additional learning needs.
Sure.
So it was just to see kind of what we can do for children that don't kind of fit the standard type 1, and where we can kind of include them as well.
And again, that's sort of a stream I'd love to be able to do a bit more work on. Like I said, I am making a little bit of income from selling it elsewhere, and all of the money goes back in. So I've actually costed up what it would be to have an easy read version of these, but I don't need an early read version, and I don't work with people who do. So without you signing up to, maybe if that's a specific area you've got interest in, put that on my phone. I'd love to be able, when I've got the opportunity to come and do that, work with people who have that speciality. I have worked in special educational needs schools previously, and it's something I really enjoyed, but without your expertise to help me develop them and sign them off, I get a bit stuck. So, but absolutely, I've already costed it up, and I'd love to see that. And if there's other versions of things I haven't mentioned today, again, all ways that we could potentially grow. I can't promise everything, but I certainly can try. And that's why I've had these, you know, your names are pleased to just try and help me, because we can do really good things together. I'm sure. Well, I'm confident we can. So yeah, please, if that's an area, put your name down and we'll carry that conversation. Oh, is there anything we're definitely missing that you'd like to see? That's probably one of them. So it's on point. I think it was the extra question we added at the end. We're coming to the very end of the day now, I think. So thank you for still being here. Sorry.
But we are finding our job is being made that much more difficult now, because lots of young adults have got mental health challenges as well. So we haven't got a psychologist in our young adult clinic. And I'm just conscious that sometimes when you probe too much and you open up a can of worms, you're leaving people high and dry. We've got lists of people we can signpost certain people to, like we get some young adults who are homeless and some who say they've got drug and drink addiction. They are easy places to signpost to, but for the ones with anxiety and low mood, is there anything that perhaps we could?
We've got the Talking Type 1 range. Are you aware of those, or is anybody not aware of the Talking Type 1? So Dr. Rose Stewart, who was speaking on the pre-recorded session, she, again, this is an ODIG innovation that's come very similar to SEREN Connect. We started off together as well, and I've heavily been involved in those booklets. There's self-help booklets. So there's one about diabetes burnout. There's one, there's one, needle phobia is another one. Yeah, so you're testing me now, you know better than me. There's advice for parents and carers. And I think we've already had some discussion around, actually we could do with some resources for parents and carers as well. That's again an avenue I'd like to go down. So there's a Talking Type 1 range, but it is quite self-help. I wonder if I put that out to the health boards and see what else do you refer anyway. I don't know if there's any third sector charities or anything that, how are you dealing with this? Because we know that people with, so mind. Yeah, anyone else got anything they want to chip in? Oh, STEPI. It is a Welsh word. STEPIAU. S-T-E-P-I-A-U. Oh, I've not used that one. So, shall I say that slower? S-T-E-P-I-A-U. Yeah, that's it. IAU. Yeah, STEPI. Apparently, that's a good one. S-T. Test me out. S-T-E-P-I-A-U. Yeah, we are updating our, like I said, everything's changing all the time, isn't it? But we've got the NHS Collaborative website now, which has been up and running for a little while, but we haven't promoted it very well because we didn't, obviously COVID happened and everything else, but we will be putting more stuff on there. Again, Joe's got an excellent point. Perhaps we could try and get a list of all of these things that you could then go to as a central point, and then you can put them on your own local websites if needed, but we'll definitely do that. Step Guy was one. We had Mind was another one. Do we have anything else? I know there's Young Minds as well, isn't there? There's then the Headspaces and Activate Your Life. Valley Steps, was that? Yeah, there's another one to write down. Valley Steps, do some self-referral courses, was it? Oh, self-help, sorry, yeah. It's not local to Swansea. And what was it called? Kooth? Yeah, K-O-O-T-H. Oh, there you go. It'd still work for 25s and above, I'm sure. It's really hard to get a cut-off, isn't it? We normally speak as a funding more than anything, but if things work for people, then we need to get them accessible for people. Anyone else got anything they want to share? No? Speak now, forever hold you, please. Go on. Yeah, please. This is
Swin and Aaron Bevan, we aren't using this yet. I think that's fair to say. Not in the format that you've shown us. And the discussion we were having about kind of relaunching it. And I was a bit confused about how these 4 sessions lay over the top of existing medical commitments. And we were trying to pad that out a bit more in terms of, do you do 2, then transition, then the next 2, or do you do 4, then medical transition? And they were kind of the things that we were on question 5 about what you do on an individual level and local level. We were thinking about in terms of like, how do we, now we're together, we all want it, but what does it look like and how do we run with it?
That's a good point. So when you see the curriculum, it'll actually tell you should have 4 sessions, 1 every 6 months, ideally. Actually, what we're now saying, where we've been trialing it, is actually what can you do with what you've got? Speak to your, we're quite happy to speak to one another. I've had Joe up here today, I've had Jane up here today to see how they got it off the ground. But actually, like I said, Julie as well, she's doing weekly sessions, she's doing monthly sessions. It's doing what you can with what you've got, and what are your young people responding to. So just because you've done something once and if people don't come, I wouldn't say try something else come straight away. It is about trial and error, I think, and finding what can work for your service at the minute, because you're probably never going to be in a position where you have the capacity of X, Y, and Z in every health board, in every team. So what can you do with what you've got? How can these resources help you? I don't know if that's answering the question, or if anyone else wants to sort of chip into, where would you start? Is it worth asking some people where they started from? Joe and Jane, when you got, how do I get this off the ground? What were your feelings and where did you?
And then find the best place where it sit. And like you said, it's trial and error. It's see what works for you. Start with smaller groups. If that works, then go to big groups and do that works and get feedback.
Jane,
what we've done is we've cushioned it between T1 and T1A. So they have their T1 and then they do the SEREN E1 section, and then we have a nurse joint adult pediatric nurse clinic after it at Christmas, where we can discuss what's been spoken about already and get relationships moving. So you just have a look at what your pathway looks like and then sandwich it in, really.
Ideally, what we were going for was 5 individual clinics over 2 years when it's a part of transitional care, and then you'd have these 4 sessions sandwiched in, but you don't have to do it that way. If one, you can't because capacity. What I don't want is say you have to do it this way, and then you go, well, we can't do that, we're not doing it at all. So that's how it was initially, but it's there to be flexible. And if you get stuck, get in touch with me and I'll get the help from somewhere else. So we'll help you with that. After today as well, if there's any conversations you need to have with me, I'm always happy to have a virtual Teams meeting or come and see you and give you further support. So it doesn't end today. In fact, it probably starts for a lot of you as well. So please keep linked in with me after today. Everyone's gone quiet. I want to go home now, probably. I'm going to just hand back for some summaries, I think. Leanne, do you think anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I just think sort of, continuing with the theme. So a few comments more, if anybody's got any comments they want to make now about the day, about what they feel has been helpful, anything at all, actually. The food, the lunch is always good at the All Nations, as we all know, but anything at all, anything that you want to share before we go. But I hope you found it a really helpful day. And we've answered some questions, or we've, got you thinking about how you might do this, or actually, you've got some confirmation that you're doing really well, and you are using the resources, and it is making a difference, because I'm pretty sure it is making a difference, and you are improving young people with diabetes lives. So I don't know if anybody wants to say anything at all. You don't have to. Probably had enough, in fact. Just you? Oh, your evaluations as well, please.
Beat me to it. Just beat me to it. I'm not going to keep everyone for too much longer, because I'm completely aware that we want to get out before the traffic is horrible. But I'm sure you all remember a little bit earlier on from Joanne's opinion polls and the 4 sort of questions. And one thing that I did pick up on was the willingness of you all to, this is, you can't see it at the back there, is about collaboration. I was going to go through some of the major themes from each one of those groups, but I think we'll get sufficiently bored. You'll start throwing things which are heavy at me, and it's probably not a good thing. But these 4 sort of components: collaboration, improving knowledge and confidence, the themes you all come up with are very consistent. It's quite obvious for me as an outsider, obviously on my second day, that you all want to do a good job. And I think that's the message that I'm going to take away from today, is about the willingness of each and every one of the people here to get young people in a safe place for what is a very difficult condition to manage on a day-to-day basis. So you should all be congratulated on that. So, and also personal thanks for the welcome I've had. I did pop around and I have a little bit of laugh and joke with some of you to sort of say it's been a bit like the wedding. Pop around saying, hello, how are you? How's the cake? Lovely. Next. And I know that can be quite difficult. So thanks for that on a personal front. And as a learning and training day, I'd like to say thank you to Sarah and the rest of the team for what they put together today. I know it's no mean feat, and getting fed always helps. So thanks very much for that. It was brilliant. And generally the fact that everyone's, the quality of the work that's been produced in the booklets and the content and the feedback from everybody else has been really brilliant. So just last few sentences, and then you say good riddance to the ginger guy. Unfortunately, this is my full size height. So everyone at the back, I'm not sat on anything. This is me full size. Okay, so right there, if you can see me at the back. So thanks for everybody for attending, and we hope you had an enjoyable day, because I certainly have myself. I hope you've learned something and you've taken something away. And I seem from some of the table sort of conversations, from the feedback, seeing how your colleagues work makes a massive difference. Sometimes you feel similarly supportive. Thanks again to all the speakers and to the organisational team, as I said, with Sarah and everybody else. And for the All Wales Diabetes Implementation Group for supporting this event. If you do need any more SEREN stuff, I think it's been legged now, so forget it, gone. It's out the door. You had your opportunity, it's gone. But like I say, if you do need anything, I'm sure Sarah and Ness and everybody else and Laura will happily pat that on for you. And I'm sure everyone's got Sarah's email address. If not, it'll be on the pack somewhere as well. So as a parting comment, thanks everyone. Safe journey home. Be safe, and I look forward to meeting you all at some point in the non too distant future. So thanks very much, everyone.